Welcome. I'm so
Thank you.
excited to have you here today.
Same here. Thank you. I'm happy to do my first podcast interview.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, Sandra is a clinician like me, and I'll let you maybe give a brief introduction about yourself and what you do.
So, I'm a counselor like yourself. I've worked mostly in the school settings for many, many years. And I've recently done a switch where I'm now working as a mental health therapist for an EAP. And I have a private practice as well.
Amazing. So, today we want to talk about workplace stress, right? And I'm wondering if you can share some of your experience yourself as a
Mm-hmm.
counselor,
Mm-hmm.
or even before if you had another career, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and your experience with stressful workplaces.
Well, I've had different experiences with stress from different actors of the environment, let's just say, which surprised me. So we all have stressors in the workplace, of course. There's positive stressors where we need that adrenaline to give us that oomph to perform. And then we have the negative stressors that inhibit us to be creative and to be fully engaged and mindful in everyday task responsibilities. So a couple of years ago, I did live a stress with a colleague of mine who intimidated me in a
Oh my
very
gosh.
blunt, overt way. It was very surprising. And I had to talk about it to my colleagues, which I did, to seek validation. And she herself was going through a lot of mental illness issues. And she even admitted that to me at the end. So, I mean, I'm not in charge of her her behaviors, but it went to the point of mediation,
Oh my gosh. I had
and
no idea.
yeah, it was very very big, and I had to document all her inappropriate behaviors towards me, and it finished up by being proposed a different school. Like I
Okay.
had to leave to kind of circumvent the problem without really resolving the problem with her in the future because my future colleagues had the same issues with her. And then this person ended up leaving the school board because she ended up having a conflict with the principal. So sometimes conflictual people or difficult personalities are not evident at the first glance, and people have narcissistic traits or they're obsessive compulsive and borderline. Well, she was a bit of the anxiety borderline profile, and so that was hard for me to manage because I'm thinking I can't change her. These are constants in my work setting. It was very difficult because I didn't know how to dance with her in meetings and to stay professional and yet protect myself. So the
And
switch was good. Yeah.
oh, the switch to a different school.
Yeah.
And how did you live the stress?
How I lived the stress is I
Yeah.
talked a lot about it
Okay.
because, like I said, I had so many years of experience. I'm a team player. I love people. I want to resolve problems. I want to work in projects. I worked at the Ministry of Education on different projects related to guidance oriented
Hmm.
approach to learning. And all of a sudden I'm caught in this scenario. So I made this information very public
Okay.
to everybody, including sending emails that I received from this particular colleague that were abominable. But I don't want to get into the
Well,
complications.
that's
But
so brave of you
yes,
that you spoke up.
because I said this is an anomaly. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it could happen to anybody. And I think it was a question of her sense of insecurity vis-a-vis me because I had more experience. She's coming in and she wants to make her place in a very large school. And there was another colleague too. So we were three counselors. And so I was getting support and positive feedback to have a line of conduct of how to be with this person because I just didn't know. Do I avoid completely? But then I need to collaborate. What do I do in meetings when um, we're asked to do, task or follow up with students? Who does what? So there was competition. It was clear. It was flagrant. People saw it, and even
Hmm.
teachers around me. They said, "Oh, you better watch out after her." So that really gave me a lot of impetus to fight back and to go at the higher level. So I went at the level of student services, and like I said, they were involved, and there was a meeting, but then no follow up. And a couple months later, there was a Teams meeting individually, and I said the situation is not ameliorating at all. I'm just more avoidant, and that's all I could do. So when I was proposed another school, I'm like, oh yes, I'll take it. And so that happened in mid-year, and then I did a switch, and that was much more appeasing. And that's when I
Mm-hmm.
realized my nervous system, which was calmer, I was less agitated, sleeping better, less cortisol. So clearly, you have to watch for the signs. I watch for the signs in my body,
Mm-hmm.
and what are the labels associated with my emotions. And if something like this happens to the public that's watching this podcast, is not to be shy to go in yourself and your higher self and say, what's going on? Are my reactions normalized? Why am I uncertain? Why am I feeling edgy? We can't be in love with everybody we work with. That cannot always be a good fit, but there has to be a sense of respect,
Yeah,
loyalty, and trust, like in any relationship.
for
And
sure.
at the get go, there wasn't any of that with her. So, what I'm saying is, I learned from it. I never experienced something like that again, but it's not unavoidable. You know?
For sure. It's interesting you're because I get a lot of referrals for private practice
Mm-hmm.
from people from the EAP. And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a good amount of people
Yes.
that are going through intimidation situations at the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of a positive outcome like yours, though. I have to be honest. Every single time I get somebody who comes in, it's very complicated. It seems really hard, especially if they're getting intimidated by somebody higher up or somebody more senior than them,
Mm-hmm.
where there are politics at play.
Yes.
A lot
That's
of
more common.
times,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and a lot of times human resources will jump in, but then they're not really helping the situation at all. They're just kind of protecting
Exactly.
the establishment. So, what would you say to somebody who's living this and maybe doesn't feel like they have supportive colleagues?
Well, I'd also want to add, I also went to the union, which was not helpful for me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they were lending year and they organized the meetings, but there was not even a follow up. Like, how are you doing in your new setting? How, what more could we do for you? So sometimes it's the perception of help and its efficacy that could be disappointing or not. So what I would say is to reach out, to, either through your own therapist, of course, I'm gonna have a bias,
Mm-hmm.
or in the workplace if it's big enough to address the issue and you feel safe, emotionally safe with somebody who's going to have a year for you and say, "Oh, okay, red flag. There, this is an issue. It's not just about you. It is, a recurring problem.
Mm-hmm.
Document, give me examples. It's something critical." So, getting advice from colleagues is important, writing down, journaling feelings, looking at your own strategies of coping with stress. Oh, I have anxiety, I have panic attacks, I withdraw or I attack. I decided to attack in a more formal way, but I could have withdrawn completely and nobody would have known my situation, and I would have pretended and faked my way, but that's not what I wanted. So,
Yeah,
get
maybe like if there's all the different ways of like fight, flight,
yeah,
fawn, freeze, you
exactly.
fought.
Yeah, I fought not in an
No,
aggressive way, and because I realized we can't. It's not that evident to fire somebody. That's what I'm
right.
realizing, or to say, we're meeting with you because you're problematic in your behaviors, and we're going to displace you, or we're going to give you a sanction. Like which one exactly? So sometimes there's limitations within the capacity for change, especially in a large structure. In my case, a school board. But in a small milieu where it's a small, medium sized company where maybe there's few actors involved, or you could only trust one person. And then what's the margin of maneuvering for you to say, okay, I either leave or I stay?
Mm-hmm.
And if you stay, what does that look like? What could I change? Have you been able to address the issue with your boss? Is the boss citing the other person or you? Are there internal politics and a culture of work that's ingrained in toxicity and
Mm-hmm.
taking sides and competitiveness and secrets in backstabbing? So all these are realistic scenarios in the workplace, in any setting, education, like business, like private, like public. So I think it's to see who could be your allies in the internal service of where you work, is it damaging or enhancing you to talk to this person?
Mm,
You know,
that's a good nuance.
are they related to the boss and you didn't know, and oops, there's too much information going on? And what are the resources? What are the emotional resources you have to cope? Are you being diplomatic about it, or are you being emotional in the workplace, which is not always the best? Um, did you give it enough of a try to with that person to talk things out, to remediate the situation, or is just a recurrent pattern and you don't feel at ease? If you can't control it's because it's in the environment, and it's a daily repetitive feeling slammed, feeling not heard, feeling not given attention, overworking, etc. And there's no human resource department, and there's no union, and there's no nobody. You have to ask yourself, how do I intervene and advocate for myself and my rights? Or do I go seek, like I've had clients like yourself who went to la Commission des droits de la personne, les normes du travail, la CNSST. Do you take a sick leave? But is that just a band-aid? Do you come back and say, I'm taking a sick leave and I want to remediate, or do you take a sick leave to find another job?
Yeah, and that's what I see a lot. A lot of people, and I do also encourage them to call these different organizations to just at least gather information.
Yeah.
But a lot of the people I work with are in a state of being traumatized and being scared.
Yeah.
The intimidation really got to them. So
Mm-hmm.
they don't necessarily have, like, even just calling the CNUSST is scary for them. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes part of the counseling I do is supporting them with that,
Mm-hmm.
figuring out what they're going to say, reassuring them that it could be an anonymous call.
Mm-hmm.
But then eventually, a lot of people do end up on sick leave because they just don't know what to do anymore. They're at a
Mm-hmm.
standstill. And during the sick leave, they try to figure out, most of the time, an exit strategy.
Absolutely. In my EAP experiences, I have the same thing. It's rare that a member of the company says, I have trust that when I come back, the situation will be resolved. It has to be pre-resolved before the sick leave,
Mm.
because things that grow. Let's just say in terms of contempt or indifference, etc. So,
But how do you resolve it before the sick leave if you're not well enough to
well,
resolve it?
there's that too. So I'm going on sick leave because I'm burnt out. Which, by the way, that was a strategy I was considering. Had I stayed
Mm-hmm.
in that school, and then you say to yourself, how is it possible to go back? Not replaced, and now for sure there's resentment that I left and other feelings. So you could either, what I've told the clients and I've told myself, you could write to that person who intimidated you and ask for a meeting, even though you're on sick leave, or you get to talk to your EAP person from your company and say, okay, what are some strategies? But I would say, try to work it out at the higher level management. How does your manager see the problem or
Mm-hmm.
perceive a solution, knowing the problem in advance? I'm saying
Yeah.
once
By
it's
the
known.
way, I just want to clarify for those who are watching, you might not know what an EAP is. It's an employee assistance program, and a lot of organizations or employers nowadays will give you access to an employee assistance program as part of your benefits. And you can just call, find out what the phone number is from your HR, because sometimes it's harder to find the information, but it's available to you. And a lot of times you get free sessions, like a short term counseling, 4, 5, 6, sometimes up to 12 sessions for free with a therapist. So it's worth looking into when you're stuck in situations like this.
Absolutely, because sometimes eh, em- it may involve exploring a lawyer for
Yes.
I want to leave, but I don't know by severing package, or it could be a financial assistance, like I'm going to leave my job, but I don't know if I could afford to go on EI afterwards, and what do I need to stay out of a job to still live? So there's different people that could have their professional perspective in this dossier. But if you have an ally that is mostly at the management level, that's a bonus. If you have nobody and everybody's in that negative circle against you and you're stuck, then there has to be a human resource content in there where that contact is able to intervene. If there's no intervention and you feel hopeless, that's where most people take the route of the sick leave or and another job offer or changing sectors of work in the same with the same employer.
Yeah. And I've seen that time and time again. And I guess that's part of what I support people, and I'm sure you too, trying to figure out which avenue to go based on what their situation is. But I just want to say to people, like, once you get out of those environments, that's when you really can tell the damage that happened. When you're in the midst of
Yes.
it, you know you're
Yes.
stressed, you know you're burnt out, you know you're on edge,
That's right.
but oftentimes you don't realize how bad it is. And then when you leave
Yeah,
and you start to feel happy again,
that's
peaceful again, you're like, oh my gosh. And you're like, why didn't I do leave sooner? Why didn't I do something sooner?
absolutely. So you become a bit in a fog of fear, wanting the job, wanting to have change made, but it's not possible because you're available to adapt, but the other person isn't. When I left that school setting, which I was in for 11 years, by the way, so I was very comfortable in that setting,
Wow,
I
11
lost
years.
20 pounds in 2 months
Oh gosh.
because my cortisol level went down. I was able to breathe, sleep better, be more
Wow.
regulated, be less tense, not eat as much junk, not worry as much. So that is also a value, right? You could say, yeah, I'm going to tough it out and make it the best day I can. But if your nervous system is telling you otherwise, that is the sign to look at because you don't want to detriment your health. And I had contacted my EAP therapist, my
Oh,
employee assistance therapist, while I was going through this. And she said, it looks like you're going to leave your skin if you continue. You know, I mean, it's an expression, laissez ta peau. Like,
yeah. And
so,
that's the thing. We sometimes we don't realize how bad
no,
it is, and we need a therapist or an outside party
no,
to reflect to us how bad it is
that's
for
right.
us to even like acknowledge it.
Exactly, because at first it's a shock, and then it's like, no, no, no. You find compensatory behaviors to say, oh no, it's a bad day for that person. It'll be better tomorrow. Oh, that meeting went well in the end. And you're looking for things
Hmm.
like in an abusive relationship, you're looking for that
The
love connection,
breadcrumbs.
the breadcrumbs. And in the end of the day, there's nothing, or it's just like, gaslighting or love bombing or whatever it is. It's all strategies to maintain the toxicity and then it becomes all pervasive. So it's very hard to leave, but it's mostly hard to accept that this is actually happening to you. Like I had a hard time to actually, reach out, imagine to my boss who could say, "Hey, are you the problem?" But no, I was heard from both angles, but nothing was done because it was a delicate matter. Because what she said, I don't know, versus what I said about the situation, there was a crisis moment that led to me calling, the the higher,
Can
school
you
board
tell
people.
us what the crisis moment was?
Well, I could say, well, that person was took one of my student files, and it was a new registration, and she changed the placement recommendation. So I come to my office the next day and I see that my file's not there. It's not completed. I'm like, hmm. So right away, I got on the phone with some colleagues from other schools and they said, well, take it back, get it back. And I'm like, trust me, I will, because this is not acceptable. It's not ethical.
Mhm.
I could have brought this to the order as well, the professional order of counselors. So I let that day pass. I went to work early the next day. I opened her door, I took the file, and I finished and I corrected her correction on me and my placement with recommendations which had details on why the student should be placed in secondary two with measures in a special program to relearn um, relearn how you say notions
Was
concepts
it
of
so?
grade
It
two.
was your student.
Yeah,
It was your case, your file,
yeah,
and she came in and just changed it.
because she disagreed with because she was in charge and it was a certain sector of some students groups. I was involved in others, and when we talked about this case, she disagreed and she got mad. Like, I'm gonna do better in a sneaky way. So
Oh
it's a
my
sneaky
gosh.
way that was unacceptable.
You know what I think makes me even more upset about this
Yeah.
situation is that it's somebody who works in the mental health field.
That's right.
Y-
That's right. And has crisis all the time, panics, cries, and then tells me, I just started my antidepressants and I know I'm very emotional. And I'm like, you know what? This is not acceptable. Whichever way you cut it, I don't care about what happened last night, whether you slept 1 hour, 1 minute. This behavior is just non-negotiable.
Right. She should have gone on medical leave to
For
take care of
sure.
herself.
Well, the following year she did, and the following year she did with new people in place. And then the third year, she had a big run in with the principal and she left on her own accord because, hey, she took a sick leave every year to avoid confronting her and look inside what's going on with me. There's something of a pattern going on. So for me, it was the beginning of building up a case and being hyper vigilant to the point where I used to lock up all my files, and
Wow.
not just like my obviously my student files, which are confidential, but administrative files, knows everything because I didn't trust her for two pennies. And I said to myself, this is terrible to live in such a situation of mistrust. So
Yeah, with a colleague in the mental health field. Oh my gosh, I
we're
can't even
equal.
imagine.
We're equal colleagues. We're not like business opponents and like,
Right.
hey, you're making more than me, and how dare you be my
Wow.
competitor. So it was very, very hard, and it became really the focal point of my overthinking, to the point where I had a colleague who retired, like, I don't know, maybe 6 months before, and I was consulting her on a regular basis because she was really worried for me and my mental health. And where are the solutions? There were not any. That's what I realized. And then I realized, sadly to say, the more you talk and complain, the more it could be used against you because the other person's
Exactly.
perception is like tenfold different.
That's why I always tell people not to go to HR, because the more details you give to HR, the more ammunition they have. And then it just turns into
Hmm.
almost like a legal battle of two
Yeah,
employees, except HR doesn't actually care about what's in your best interest. They care about the company's best interest.
that's right. Even if it was an employer situation, conflict with an employee, it would have been to protect the best interests of the employee, even if that person has a background, a history of flawed behaviors.
That's terrible. Well,
Yeah.
okay. How do you, thank you for sharing that. How do
Yeah.
you feel now? Do you miss working there?
Not at all. I'm so relieved. I have so much deep breathing possibilities. But then I had another incident in my new
Okay.
school setting a year and a half, 2 years ago, which led me to transition again, but on my own volition. I had a vice principal that was very domineering, very insecure herself about her new role, and she was always after me for information, validation, doing extra work, doing administrative tasks, and all this while I'm seeing students and I have plenty of work to do every day. And I became very resentful and very agitated to try to service her and service, my students and counseling processes and working with parents and the team, professionals. And it became very, what would be a word for it? Very malignant because I would help her in things that were beyond my scope, you know, like do statistics on, based on the data you have, statistics on the number of students who failed math. And I'm thinking, that's funny. In the other school, I didn't do this. It was a secretary, there were other people. So because of shortage of, of jobs and people not being hired to do the right job, or just saying, okay, let's do it all. Like counselors could do it all because we're nice people. Well, it became like a very gray zone of different other tasks. And I couldn't say much. I didn't have much of a margin of maneuvering because she was my principal. She was my go to person. But the undercurrent was like, take you better take my commands on the side too. So at one point I had said, no, I'm not available right now, and it was a big thing. And I realized, oh, so I have to meet her at 4 every third day, after my workday is over because there's tasks still to be done that don't lie in my mandate. So that became very stressful as well, and very much a form of abuse itself, right? It's a form of control, it's a form of entitlement, it's a form like you better help me because I have a subordination over you. And then I realized that's not going to change either. So in the second year with that same person, I said, you know what? I don't have to live her insecurity. It doesn't mean because I have much more experience in another field. And also, our role wasn't well defined. You know, my role vis-a-vis her students. She's coming from another milieu, and so one day I was speaking to my brother, and he said, "Do you really have to stay there?" I said, "No, but where would I work? There's not that many jobs. I don't want to work in another school board." He said, "Try it out. Just send your CV. You never know." And so I gave myself confidence. And during a March break to a year and a half ago, I started sending CVs. Didn't hear much. I sent over 1,000 CVs over time. And then I finally got two job interviews. And then I accepted one position, which is one of the AAP companies I accepted to work with. And so that was encouraging because I didn't even know that these positions were available to counselors.
Right.
I thought they were just available to psychologists, psychotherapists, social worker. I'm like, wow. So, and what helped me is my private practice experience, which gave me a foundation to say, hey, yeah, I could do this on a regular basis and help people, mostly adults, in workplace problems, anxiety, relationship, over and above what I dealt with teenagers. And I don't have the big piece, which is the milieu, which is negative around me.
Yeah. So you're no longer in a toxic environment
Yeah,
and you're able to use your skills to a higher potential
yeah,
to serve better.
yeah,
Good. I'm glad that that happened.
yeah, yeah. And I didn't know. You see, my mindset was like, well, I'm committed to my employer. I'm going to stay till the very end of my career. For me, it was like, fight it out, fight it out. Okay, you're tired. It's going to be okay. It was never really okay. It was, I always had a feeling of unfinished business. And I would get up even earlier to go into work earlier and to leave later because I had so much to do. And I thought, I'm getting a lot of hours for free. And I did. And at one point, it was too much. I was told you're doing too many hours, and then I didn't even tabulate them anymore. I didn't get paid for them. I just did them myself because I had no choice to survive.
What's interesting from everything you're sharing with me is that I'm hearing the typical profiles of folks who are at a much higher risk of burning out. People
Mm-hmm.
who are empathetic,
Mm-hmm.
people who are loyal,
True.
people who are helpers,
That's true.
and I'm going to say women are much higher risk
Mm,
just because we're socialized to be quieter, to be more docile, to accept
right.
more.
True.
So these are the sort of things that put people at risk of burnout and then make them feel, no, like I have to be loyal,
Mm-hmm.
or they helped
Right.
me that one time, therefore I should keep quiet.
Right. And at the end of my career, tough it out for a couple of
Exactly.
years.
Yeah,
And then
tough
I'm
it out
like,
at what cost?
at what cost and why? Is somebody patting my back? Am I getting a supplement for this? Am I getting a recognition? I get nothing. We're just numbers. And at the end of the day, nobody called me to ask me how I was doing, knowing that I had all these issues in these two work settings. So protect your assets, which is you, your mind, your well-being, and looking at the light in the darkness. What's out there? There are options at all ages, in all sectors, and to reach out to mentors, to people who are in your area, in your domain, and start talking. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay, so what are some, I know you had a couple ideas of coping strategies that you maybe wanted to share with our listeners. So what are like the key coping strategies that either helped you or that you've seen help your clients?
The main coping strategies are mindfulness, being aware of what you're aware of and it's real. Like in the beginning, like I said, there's an element of shock. Could it be me? What's going on? Maybe I'm the problem. So the shock, doubt, denial. And then it's about, mm, when I'm always in doubt, I ask myself, how would you act if this was you in that person's role in this context? Would you have been aggressive that way? Would you have cried and create a scene? No. So obviously there's something going on. There's jealousy or competition, or person is ill at ease with themselves. So trying to understand the other perspective and then to say, how do I feel in my body? Deep breathing, doing the anchoring. What is my,
What is
language?
anchoring? For those who don't know.
Anchoring is really like being in the here and now and saying, okay, I'm aware of my environment. I'm aware of my values also, that I need to feel respected, valued, attended to in the workplace. And that's not happening. I'm aware of my environment. I'm not aligned with my emotions because I'm really nervous about going to work now, even though my mind is saying it's going to get better, it's going to get better, but I'm agitated. So, what are your feelings telling you? I'm insecure. I'm getting insecure. I'm getting scared. I have trepidations. I don't know whether to silence myself or to act up or just be me. I'm scared to be me in the workplace. So when there's not that well-being feeling in the workplace, the question is, looking at where does it come from? What are the causes? Maybe you're the cause.
Mhm.
Are you not listening to what that person asks you to do? If it's your boss or your supervisor, so try to assess, talk it out with the person at hand if you could. Go to a higher level person. Um,
I
things are changing in your life, your sleeping habits, your eating habits, you're agitated, you're nervous, you're thinking about work, you're ruminating. Those are signs.
exactly. What something that came up while you were explaining this is, you were saying, am I the problem, or standing up to the person? This introspection is so important because sometimes, I mean, everybody brings their childhood with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, it's a workplace environment and you're just colleagues, but maybe you were, abused as a child, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
you were bullied as a child, or maybe whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're bringing that with you in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're more susceptible to becoming a victim. I'm not saying that's your experience at all. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying maybe this dynamic shows up for
Mm-hmm.
somebody that now, because of that experience, they
Mm-hmm.
haven't had the experience of standing up for themselves in
Mm-hmm.
other parts of their lives
Mm-hmm.
or in their past. So this feels impossible too.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not just working through the workplace issue, is what
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get
Mm-hmm.
to. You're also working through this whole whatever happened in your past
Absolutely.
that led you to having a hard time standing up for yourself in the workplace.
That's right. It transfers into, learning to be polite. Sometimes it's detrimental. Like you said, women are more susceptible. We want to do good. We have all these skills to listen and to attend, but what about to ourselves? Um, so it's looking at all these elements, your background, how do you deal with stress, your trauma, your attachment style, etc. I always try to understand the context from a third perspective. If I were in this, how would I be reacting? And then put in place what I could put in place to protect myself until I'm able to see resolution, or you have to see resolution in your workplace. And if there's none and you've opened all the doors and they were slammed at you, then you have to be truthful with, what does this new reality tell me? Is there something that I did and said that is turning people against me? Oh, but these people like me in my department, I'm going to stay close to them because the new kids on the block, and I hear this a lot from my clients. Oh, there's a new kid on the block and she's taken, the management role, and she does what she wants, and people are like, licking her, to have support and to be in her favorite list and to get promoted. So you have to look at all the dynamics involved and see what I could change for myself to have a better adaptability. Or, I see that there's issues, but in my workplace every day, I feel more than less grounded. That's what you have to ask yourself.
Yeah, very good. And if you look at it now from a distance, since it's been a few years now, what do you think maybe was like your spiritual lesson that you had to learn from going through all of this?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the bigger spiritual arc of this is loving oneself and
Mm,
listening to the needs that are calling out and saying, this is a no go. I am not going to endure. How do you step out of line with your boundaries to not engage in self betrayal and to say, I am in charge of my emotions and I am in charge of the way I want to live a healthy workplace environment? And you're saying, what's going on? So you're allowed to recognize and validate that there are loopholes, but which ones impact you directly where you say, I could change, adapt, or leave? And you're allowed to leave the situation. As much as an employer is allowed to fire you, you're allowed to fire the employer in a way.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're making me think back of one of my experiences in a burnout. It wasn't necessarily a toxic environment, but I had my degree from California. I moved here and didn't wasn't licensed as part of an order here, so it was very hard to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
With I have the master's degree, but I don't have the order thing, so I had kind of like this complex of inferiority because of
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up in this job, which I was so grateful just to get a job where I could use my degree in any way, shape, or form,
Mm-hmm.
that I was probably way overqualified for,
Mm-hmm.
in a shelter. And I was overworked.
Mm-hmm.
The hours were wild, the pressures were insane. It was a domestic violence shelter. And there was just not a lot, not as
Mm-hmm.
much support as I would have needed. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's true for anybody who works in community organizations,
Mm-hmm.
nonprofits, or community mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me some time, and then COVID hit,
Mm-hmm.
to where I couldn't do it anymore with the changes that were going on with the COVID and everything. So I went on a burnout leave.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, a lot of other things transpired that I won't get into. But
Mm-hmm.
suffice it to say, I tried to go back to that workplace when I was in a better place,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't feel right. So I tried. I was about to reintegrate. I met with the
Mm-hmm.
people to kind of start to make a plan of reentry.
Mm-hmm.
And after having been away for, I don't remember how long it was, maybe 6 months or maybe a year even. I don't remember how long I was away for. When just going to that meeting, my entire body signals were sending me
Mm-hmm.
red signals.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't want to go back there. This something just feels off. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that I didn't understand it at the time. I thought that was the best I could do.
Mm-hmm.
That's my point. Sometimes we think this is the best I can do. I can't find anything else. I need to just shut up and figure it out and make this
Mm-hmm.
work,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't have a choice. Imagine if I had kept thinking that way. Thank
Mm-hmm.
God I didn't. I ended up leaving, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, firing the employer, and realizing that there were a bunch of alternatives that my narrow vision was
Mm-hmm.
blocking me from seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was able to get into eventually into private practice
Mm-hmm.
and make my own schedule and make double triple the money that I was making.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of times it has to do with our self-worth, our amount of self-love,
Mm-hmm.
because if we're accepting less than we deserve,
Mm-hmm.
it comes from a place of not feeling good about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do the work and start to recognize, you know what, this isn't okay for me,
That's right.
whether it's the pay or the way you're being treated or whatever, the hours you're having to do, the moment you get this sort of sense of, I'm worth better than this, I deserve better than this,
Yeah.
is the moment where things can start to change for the better.
Exactly. And now, if you ask me to go back, because I took a leave of absence and I had to decide last week if I go back or not to my school setting, I said no with a smile because I'm like, I've evolved. I don't deserve that milieu. That milieu doesn't deserve me. I have worked on myself to realize, whoa, I need peace of mind when I'm working. I don't need to overextend myself to please or to be loved. I think that's my own issue, seeking security, seeking validation, and oh, yes, I'm important for that person. I don't think so, over
Yeah.
and above the workplace. So, all these questions lead to, investigating in your own therapeutic way as clients who could evolve into better people for yourselves mostly.
Absolutely. And I guess I just want to add also, like, I'm not trying to uh poo poo the shelter. Like they do wonderful work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the school board does wonderful
Yeah, yeah,
work,
yeah, of course.
but there are things about certain jobs that they're there to teach you a lesson, and
That's
we
right.
still have to hold gratitude because we this workplace gave us an experience.
Oh,
It
definitely.
gave us all these opportunities. It gave us
I'm
some
sure you had great
skills.
moments, right?
I'm sure you had some great colleagues, as
That's
did
right.
I. Like there are some very positive things that we can
Yeah,
still celebrate
yeah,
about an experience, but still choose to walk away for other reasons and be grateful, and
that's right.
then move on instead of being resentful
That's right.
and
That's right.
staying.
Exactly. Resentful and wanting these little glimmers of, oh, that person cares for me, loves me, um, glorifies me, puts me on a pedestal. Is it because you're lacking it in your own personal life? Is it because you've always lacked it as a child? So, how to give back to yourself and how to recalibrate your needs versus workplace needs versus setting the boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. And I think anybody who's in this place right now, like hang in there,
Yeah,
right?
there's hope.
There's hope. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes work on yourself, but don't put up with bullshit.
Yeah.
Don't put up with bullshit. You deserve better.
Or psychological abuse because it is omnipresent in the workplace all the time.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. And I think people are starting to realize it more and more and talk about it more and more because in our parents' generation, this wasn't even a topic. You
Mm-hmm.
just worked where you worked until you retired, and that was the end of that. But now we have more options, more
Mm-hmm.
opportunities,
Yeah.
and I would hope more accountability for folks who act out of line in the workplaces.
Mm-hmm. And recognizing that people are allowed to step up and react, and there has to be more advocacy to engage in true dialogue, mediation, resolution with employers, and they have to be open to looking inward too. What's going on? Are companies losing employees? Is there an issue with us? So it's a two-way street, but it hasn't been developed, enough
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that
and I like
perspective.
that you're bringing up that a lot of times it's just systemic, and
Yeah,
it is the company that's problematic,
yeah.
which is so interesting because sometimes they'll reach out to me to go give presentations to their
Mm,
employees
mm,
about burnout and give them skills and teach them this, and I'm like, maybe we need to look at what you're doing internally as a company
that's right.
that's leading all your employees to go on leave instead
Exactly.
of throwing workshops at them.
That's right. What are the causes, and how could we proactively work as a team to change the mindset, to change the mentality, the equality, being heard, being seen, being loved in the workplace for all employees.
I love it. Great. Well, this was really amazing. Are there any final thoughts you want to add?
I just like to add that at the end of the day, it all comes down with you being honest with you and how you feel and resonate with your work. It could also be that you're not in the right job because you don't like it, you don't have the skill sets, you have other ambitions. So assess, is it you with your own angst about your work, or is it inherent, like you say, in the workplace where there's something going on, systemically that is just not working for a lot of people, not just you? Or is it something else, like you're going through a crisis, a divorce, some sort of a grief or whatever it is, and that is impeding in your workplace? So just identifying, conceptualizing the problem then leads to a more effective intervention plan.
I love it. And yeah, and sometimes the person does need, I'm not saying everybody should go on medical leave, but sometimes we need a little bit of distance, like maybe a week off of vacation, or maybe it is a medical leave, whatever, just to get the space to think straight about
That's right.
everything that you're
That's
describing.
true too. Take space, think clearly, act proactively, and seek support to really validate that you're on this track of, could it be me that's being abused? And yes, it could be, sadly, but what could I do about it?
Exactly.
Mhm.
Perfect. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming to talk about this.
Thank you very much, Kim, for this great opportunity.
I appreciate it, and I'll see you around.
I'll see you
I
around.
always see Sandra. We're on a board together, and it's very nice.
Yes. Well, thank you and have a great
Okay.
summer, everybody.